high school, I was playing baseball all through AU and all that stuff, like as a kid.
Oh, okay.
And then freshman year, I was on the freshman baseball team, wasn't on varsity or anything. Sophomore year, I was on the sophomore baseball team, still wasn't on varsity, but I was pitching on the sophomore team and I was doing pretty well. And I kind of had the confidence for myself that I could be good at pitching, but I was only throwing, 83, 84 at the time when I was a sophomore. And then after my sophomore season, I would kind of dedicate myself to, going on to varsity, being, super ready, because the team I was going on was really good before. I'm a 4A school in Iowa, one of the biggest schools in Iowa. And it's kind of hard to play varsity here. So I really had to make sure that I was ready for the opportunity. And then the next year came, my junior year of high school, my first outing, I threw a no-hitter. We 15 run the team in like 4 innings or whatever, but I had like 11 Ks. And, I just kind of dedicated after that sophomore year that I was going to be ready for my shot at varsity. And I knew that, that one opportunity is the thing that you need to take advantage of, because in baseball, especially in college, you may only get one opportunity. And I'm sure that you already know about that. But yeah, a little bit about that there is, just being ready and kind of having the confidence in yourself to be ready for the opportunity, because baseball is like, it's almost like one and done opportunities for baseball. So
absolutely. And it was that, it was that time you're like, okay, now I have to start taking this seriously. I can actually see the opportunity, the future there, that, there's something here that I can, kind of put all my focus into. And it's amazing. You were born in 95, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So me too. So, we're growing up, we're playing, around the same time. And there's so much that has changed just from that, I feel young and now I feel old, being born
right.
in 95. And there's just so much that's come, from the time we were in high school. And it's interesting because the throwing programs, the routines have just evolved into something that we couldn't have imagined. And it's interesting because, back in high school, you would maybe run a few laps, do some arm exercises, bands if you had them, and then you throw, and that was it.
Yep. And that's what Carter Nation was asking me, like, well, how did the routine change from high school to now? It's like, I did bands and ran poles, but that was about it. And now it's like, I have a plyo wall back there, weighted balls, shoulder tube. I have analytics, I have slow-mo video. Just the evolving of technology is huge for baseball, because you look at other sports, people aren't really jumping higher or throwing footballs further. It's baseball is a sport that has really evolved, and now everyone's throwing 95 plus. Back in the day, nobody was throwing, there's a select few that were throwing 95, but now it's like you got to throw 95 to even get drafted. And that comes from this routine and the weighted ball stuff, throwing hard, the velocity. I think just the education about the, pitching and the form and mechanics of baseball is just gone a long way, because before it's not a natural thing to do. A lot of people, I've heard some people say that throwing is, we've been doing it ever since we were cavemen, and I don't agree with that.
No, it's not a natural movement.
It's not a natural motion. Like our arm isn't meant to go up and over. So learning how to be safe there and loan your scaps is kind of how we got to do that, because if you're just going to go out there and throw with no mechanic or no mechanical structure or no awareness, you're prone to injury. And I got injured when I was 18 years old, and I got Tommy John, and I kind of had to remold myself and remold my mechanics.
Absolutely. And, it's once you get to college, my junior year is really when we started to like kind of implement all the drive line, all that stuff, the plyo wall. And it's, before you even pick up a baseball, it's 20, 30 minutes in and you're dripping sweat, Yep. And this is just preparing your body to, just to get ready to put all that stress on your arm. Cause like you said, it's not a natural movement. You know what I mean? So it's getting your body specifically, ready for, that stress you're about to put on it. So
I'll add on to that, just, the 85 to 97, what I learned most about was the kinetic chain. So before my 85, I told Cass, to get out the gun, I want to get gunned today. And I was just dropping in my back leg, just trying to, grip and rip it. And I was throwing 85. I'm like, what's going on? And then after college, I come back here, I start coaching. Me and my buddy stay after hours. We're just talking about the game, talking about mechanics. And I figured out the kinetic chain. I figured out I didn't have to, drop down so much in this back leg. I can just load that back hip and almost, stay in a hinge and not drop and drive. So that's a lot of things I teach my kids is, you don't have to create the energy. You can transfer it, and you're going to throw it just as hard. Because throwing is a natural movement. You have to have your body working in the right way in order to stay healthy. Because if your arm is working first, then it's probably going to, get all the tension. But if your body is working, then your arm comes through last, and you figure that out, then you can do it all day and stay safe and healthy. But before I feel like that's why I got hurt, because, I was just trying to rip it, trying to get drafted, trying to throw hard, and I had no awareness on how to do that.
Absolutely. When I think about it, or, when I try to explain it, I think of building the foundation of a house, the legs are going to be that foundation,
Yep.
To your body. And then once you have that, good foundation to your legs, then you can start building your upper body. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And it's, it's all that body control, and there's two halves to it. And I'm in the same boat as you, just because I've had 2 labrum surgeries. You know what I mean? I was a big,
That's a tough one.
you know what I mean? And I was a big arm guy, and I didn't utilize my legs a lot,
Right.
So
Right.
starting baseball at an early age, you're throwing. By the time you hit high school, how many, balls have you thrown?
How many bad reps have you done?
Bad reps have you done to where your
Yeah.
arm has put so much stress on, and now you're like, okay, I can use my legs now. But now the time you realize that, it's too late.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't
You know
even
what I
matter
mean?
at that point because you've already done the damage there. The
Mhm.
damage is kind of irreversible to your elbow because every time you throw a baseball, you have micro tears in your elbow.
Mhm.
And every time you down, you build enough force to completely rupture your UCL.
Mhm.
So the tension is there. It's figuring out how to use your body first to have the tension kind of flow in and out instead of just trying to create it and it gets all locked up in here or in your shoulder.
Mhm.
So for me, it's more working on staying hinged in my back hip and staying taller on the way out because if, once I drop down, if my back hip collapses, I'll show you real quick.
Yeah, go for it.
So this is kind of the 85 to 97. Okay, so before 85, I'll go like this,
Mhm.
and I'll get here. So I'll crouch down, and I'll get here to try to really create that energy.
You think you really want to push off? That's where you want to get it.
And the 95 is more, I'm creating torsion in this back knee right here, which is kind of rotating towards second base. I'm creating that torsion, and I'm just staying there. And I'm falling, and now I'm landing in a good position that I can finish out front. So here it'll be staying tall, fall, boom.
To explode, yeah.
Instead of here, my first movement is down and
down and up, yeah. Because then
I didn't get anywhere there.
You automatically see your head level go up and down. You want to keep
that move in comparison to this move. So that was the main transformation for me, was figuring out how to transfer the energy instead of trying to create it.
It's a lot of things now that guys are looking at is body control. And a big guy that talks about it is Stroman. You know what I mean? And he's big into, I'm sure you've seen him, he stops, he goes his motion, stuff like that, kind of disrupted. But he makes it look really easy, but that's not easy to do, mid-game, during that.
Right. And I'll add on to that is something that I study a lot is the Chinese way of pitching. The Chinese guys are really balanced in their leg lift, except, they stay level in their head. They don't drop down. So it's like they might pause here for a second, but they're still keeping that posture.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I talk a lot about is posture. Once your posture slips, that's when the collapse happens. So that posture right away, stacks, shoulders over your hips, you're staying stacked. You can do whatever you want with your leg as long as you don't lose your posture. So that's why I learned from the Chinese style of pitching. I watch a bunch of videos of that. I see the one guy throwing in the indoor barn, just like pop, 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 and he's super balanced. So it's like what I see is almost like a figure skater. So they're getting extended, and then they just get tight, and they just stick their landing.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I learned about. Instead of trying to reach out there trying to create it, it's just more transfer that energy down, stick your landing, get out front.
Yeah. No, it's one guy that I like to watch a lot, and it's you obviously see it is Chapman. How he's big, he's tall, he's strong, and it's almost like a coil to where he's up top and then it just explodes. You know what I mean? And it's it's easy to watch and see, but it's hard to replicate, and it takes a lot of reps, a lot of body control to
you think, how has he not gotten hurt? He's throwing 100 plus every single pitch. It's because his kinetic chain is all green.
And he's a guy who openly you see lifts heavy. You know what I mean? As a pitcher, which it's something that's like, okay, you don't want to bench, you don't want to do anything overhead as a pitcher, you're told. But for him, for his specific body type, that's what works.
Yeah, and I'll add on to that. In high school, first thing that grew on me for muscles was my chest. Was my pec muscles. And I didn't realize that you use your pec muscles a lot more than you think when you throw. So once I started bench pressing, I was benching 265 straight bar in high school. I wasn't doing double or anything like that. But then I started pitching, and I was like throwing 91, 92 just because, I was stacked up here and I was quicker with that rotation, extended to tight. But I was still creating it up here in high school. But that's where that strength came from, is people are kind of shying away from lifting heavy up top or overhead shoulder stuff. But that's stuff you need to do because these are the muscles that you use to throw. If these aren't ready, if you're not putting stress on them and lifting or any of that, then you go out to throw. It's like it's something foreign. So you want to make your body used to doing that, and that comes from the training strategy.
Absolutely.
Doing overhead stuff.
And it's you and me, we're guys who rehabbed. We've been in the training room. You know what I mean? And there's so much that you can just learn just being in the training room, talking with these guys. You know what I mean? And like I've had 2 years, 2 labrum surgery, so I've had a lot of time to stay in there.
Yep.
And one thing that they showed me is that I started to use a little lacrosse ball, roll out my pecs, stuff like that. And I'm like, why am I rolling out my pecs? It's not my arm. He's like, listen, this is connected to here. This is going to open up a lot more. You're going to have maybe more movement. You know what I mean? And
more range of motion, yeah.
It's more range of motion. And it's little things like that I didn't know when I was in high school. I didn't know to focus on that. I didn't have a good shoulder routine until my freshman year of college baseball. It's like we just didn't do it.
Yeah, and I'll add on to that real quick. I don't want to interrupt you, but nowadays the training room is something that you need to take advantage of. Because in college, I was at a D2, and if you're in the training room, coach thought you were hurt. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you're hanging around the training room all the time, coach thinks
not a good look. Sometimes not a good look. Yeah.
And I went to pro ball, and I tried to stay out of the training room. Trying to best ability is availability, right? Mm-hmm. So I was trying to stay out of the training room, just being ready to play. And my coaches were like, we pay these guys to take care of you. We want you in there because I was starting pitcher, on a 5-6 day rotation. So they wanted me in there. Part of my routine was getting, the deep tissue massage, the stem, cupping, and all that stuff. So like they really make you do it nowadays. Instead of back then, it was more like if you're in the training room, it's like, oh, is this guy hurt? Mm-hmm. Or if like someone's wearing a sleeve, it's like, is this guy hurt? It's like, no, you're more taking care of your body.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's come to more now where we're trying to, like I said, I keep going back to it, making smarter players, understanding your body, understanding, analytics, and then using that, to not only make your movement, your ball more efficient, but stay healthier for a longer period of time.
Yeah, because if you're not healthy, you can't play. So none of that stuff matters.
Absolutely. And it's, it sucks for, a guy like me who, I didn't have all this analytic stuff, didn't get to play with it when I was younger. And then by the time, it started becoming mainstream, I was already hurt and I couldn't utilize it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Right. My junior year, that's when I got a labrum surgery, tried to come back from it, just didn't feel the same. And, as a baseball player, like how your arm feels, how it doesn't. You know what I mean? And it just never felt the same to where I couldn't look at the Rapsodo numbers and say okay, radar gun, look at this, stuff like that.
You didn't feel 100%. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I never really got to fully just embrace the number part of it. You know what I mean? Which is,
and I'm add on to that. The number part is last summer when I went down to Arizona, I got picked up out of St. Paul. So I'll kind of just go over that story real quick.
Yeah.
I was in independent ball. So last year I graduated from Minnesota State, 2018 or 2019, whatever. I coached all off season. And at the beginning I was working a landscape job during the day. I'm sure you heard the story on Cutter Nation. And then I was coaching at night. So then I quit my landscape job during the day to start throwing again. Cause I told myself, I still got it. I can make it. So I quit my landscape job, started throwing during the day. And then I didn't pull out the gun until April, I think. And my first time pulling out the gun, I was 96. But that whole time before that, I was literally just working on mechanics and getting off the mountain probably 2 or 3 times a week, just working on how to transfer my body down the mountain. So that's really where that 97 came from, is the transferring. That's really the secret.
And then just once you, put the radar gun up, be like, oh, wow, this is.
Yeah, it's kind of like a surprise. A surprise thing more than
it's a good light bulb. You know what I mean? It's a good light bulb going off, and to see it. And one of the things we did in college, which I really liked, was we took our shoes off and we would go up the mound. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Feeling the motion up the mound without any shoes on, kind of feeling that transfer of motion and everything. And it's little things like that may have been overlooked. Before that.
Right. It's like thinking about if you're down a hill and the catcher's at the bottom of the hill, how are you going to throw a strike to that guy? If you lean your shoulders back or dip at all, there's no way you're throwing a strike down the hill. So being able to ride that slope is a skill that pitchers need to take advantage of. You can do a lot of reps without throwing a ball on a mound and get better at pitching. And that's one thing I learned from pro ball last summer is our coach got us all together and he said, does anybody know any drills you can do without throwing a ball on the mound but still getting better on the mound? Everyone just kind of went quiet.
Yeah, no one looks at each other.
And he's like, okay, here they are. So, there's a bounce throw where your leg lifts. I'll do them real quick. There's just 2 of them. So these were all the bounce throws that my kids do. So the first one, you're here. All it is, your leg lift. I'm hinging this back hip, and I'm separating my legs from my torso. So my torso is reaching down while I'm staying tall in this hip. I'm trying to touch the ground and then come back up. You got 5 in a row. I warm up right now. The second one, you're finishing. So you're on that finish. So we're here, extended to tight, finishing out front leg is straight, and just my arm is going, and my eyes are following my arm. You're going to do this on the mound, so you're at a decline. So you're feeling like that rebound off that front leg. Because if you're going down the mound and you just keep falling down, then you land and you just keep going forward, and there's no like rebound off that front leg, you're losing a lot of velocity there. So that's what I work on, is that sticking that landing, that Chinese style pitching, or Marcus Stroman style, where he's just super stable. Is it's get that extended to tight and then stable at the end, because the most important part is your finish. If you start out doing some crazy stuff at the beginning, that's only going to slow you down. So I say posture, get to a good landing position, and then just finish. But everyone's just trying to do a lot back here.
And you can see the guys that that throw hard. It's almost like their front leg snaps. You know what I mean?
Dynamic front knee.
It comes like that, snaps, and then that just the back leg just follows. You know what I mean? And it's that's the momentum just bringing it forward. And you can look at guys like Verlander, Pedro, that they have that snap and the leg just follows through. You know what I mean? So
and that's firing that back hip up and over, and you'll see a lot of the Dominican players have that back hip too. Is they get landed and they land on that front leg and they go no further than that. And they get straight and it buckles and the back hip climbs up and over, and that back leg just flies through naturally. Because they're being so quick with that twitch, the hips firing into the ground instead of like firing through and trying to go
right through it. Yeah. And it's, baseball's such a feel sport. You know what I mean? You have to, I don't know about me, but I had to feel where my arm was going, feel how my legs were moving. And it's, once you get that feel, it's just repeating it and repeating it.
Right.
And the great guys, the guys who get paid, the Garrett Cole, they're the ones who could repeat that over and over again, the perfectness of it. So it's not easy. It's hard. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I tell my lessons out all the time. It's they'll do a good rep and then they'll go back to, not using their glove or doing something like that. And I would just slow them down and be like, think about that good rep and think about becoming a robot, doing that same good rep over and over and over and over. I said, it might get boring, but that's how you practice it. That's doing the same thing over and over and not trying to do too much. And that's where I developed most, was trying to do less. I was always a guy that had a great arm and try to make the diving play up the middle, be the hero, try to throw a guy out from center field. I'd get yelled at when I was little for that. But, I was just trying to do more, but I feel like that created that talent. And then now that I'm, older, I can, know that I have that talent and I can slow down and do less, and I can think about mechanics and let my arm work. Because before I was just trying to, show off my arm. But now it's more, I know my arm's there. Now my body needs to be right. And now I can throw, 6 pitches for strikes instead of trying to throw a hard fastball and a hard curveball,
Yeah.
And that was the development for me. Was I didn't have a changeup in college. And now my changeup is probably my best pitch.
Really? I'm a big changeup guy. I'm a big changeup. It's one of the best pitches in baseball, I think. So
I was fast curve high school and college. So I think that's part of how I got hurt, is because I was just trying to go fastball, curveball as hard as I could. And no changeup, anything like that. And then once I got a changeup, I throw it probably, 86, 87 right now. And it's probably my best pitch, strikeout pitch. And once I learned how to throw a changeup, that's when things really changed for me too, is because that makes your fastball look harder.
Absolutely.
And that's all I work on lessons, changeups.
I mean, I think it's one of the best pitches in baseball. It looks like a fastball, and then it doesn't. I think it's one of the most.
It is the best pitch in baseball. I'll argue with anybody on that.
And you could throw it in any count. You know what I mean? And be successful. Even if you get good enough, you can throw it as a strikeout pitch. You know what I mean? And I was a big 2-seam changeup guy.
Yeah, and that's the thing about the analytics. So 2-seam changeup, right? Our release point. 4-seam, we want to be at 1 o'clock to get that 100% efficiency. 2-seam, we want to be at 3, right? But how do we get at 3 without having kids drop their arms to do it? That's kind of the struggle with the analytics right now, is it's so new that people don't know how to teach getting to 3 o'clock with your fingers without dropping your elbow. So that's one thing I learned in my bullpen with the Brewers last summer. Is I was the first rookie to ever go in their lab for the analytics, the edgetronics, seeing the ball come out of my hand. And after that, or during that bullpen, I got so much better, because between each pitch, it was like a minute or two. And I would go next to the coaches, probably 10 coaches behind me, and we would all talk about it. And it's like, okay, you're here. We need you there on your 4-seam. It's just that little adjustment was the difference in, 16-inch vertical break versus 20.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
I remember I popped a 15, and they told me to go to 1. And the next pitch was 19. like 4 inches of vertical break in one pitch just from that feedback.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where the analytics comes into play. And then you got your changeup and two seam. You're supposed to be at 3 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're here with your changeup and that white wall on the side,
Mm-hmm.
it's just going to run and stay flat.
Mm-hmm.
But if you get that white wall on top of the ball, that's where you get the depth.
That nice depth.
Releasing that 3. And the same thing with your two seam. You see that white wall is more on the top of the ball. That's how they get that sink.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're just running at 1 o'clock at a two seam, it's just gonna run. And that's not what you want on a two seam. And that's where the analytics comes into play.
Yeah, it's awesome just because the fact that you can go pitch by pitch and do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You throw a 40 pitch bullpen, you know, without using it, you may not know.
You may not get better at all.
Absolutely, you may not know what you're doing wrong, and then the coach is like, okay, you could do these, and these drills. You do them for a week until your next bullpen, and you don't get much better. You know what I mean?
Right.
You were working on something that wasn't going to help you. The pitch by pitch, you're like, okay, if I just move my arm, you know, that way, 3 degrees that way, or, you know, change my grip, okay, that pitch was much better, you know, and then now I have to repeat that and repeat it.
Yep. And it makes it so much easier to repeat just because you can see it.
Mm-hmm.
Because baseball before, it's like, you know, my boss here, Mitch Wiley, he played in the big leagues for several years, and he said he just sees spin,
Mm-hmm.
right? We don't have a Rhapsody yet. We're getting one. But he said he just sees it, and, you know, back in the day, guys would think that balls were rising.
Mm-hmm.
Right. There's that debate on if a ball rises or not. And that's now we know it's just a vertical break. It just doesn't go down as fast.
Mm-hmm.
So it stays up, but it's not rising. But yeah, the analytics is just huge nowadays. And I think that is something that you can use on, you know, a 12 to 13-year-old kid is not make them throw as hard as they can, but try to make them throw as efficient as they can with the spin.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's just like throwing a football as far as you can. If you're going to throw a duck or a spiral, which one's going to go further?
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of what I teach my lessons is, you know, trying to get that efficient spin on each one of their pitches, whether it's a 4-seam, 2-seam changeup. You know, I'm all about spin, then, you know, arm speed, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your arm speed is going to be there. It's body, but it's getting that ball out front, having consistent release point, consistent spin is the most, like, probably the biggest thing that helped me maintain my velocity was figuring that out.
Yeah, well, you have to understand.
Maintaining my pitches and maintaining bite.
You have to understand your body's going to change a lot from 12 to 18. You know what I mean? So you know, you don't have to worry about speed, you know, miles per hour right at this moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's getting your body in the right position to be, like I said, most efficient and less prone to injury at that point until you're fully developed. And then you can like, okay, now I could focus on, you know, getting, you know, the speed up and stuff like that.
Yeah. And me coaching last year, like I'm super into the game now more than I ever was before. Mm-hmm. And last year in the dugout, you know, games I wasn't pitching, I'll go up to the hitting coaches of my rookie ball team and be like, what do you coach the hitters? And what he said was, all my job is to do is to get him in the right position to hit.
Mm-hmm.
That's all he has to do. And I thought about that. I was like, how can that relate to pitching? It's like, get yourself in the right position to throw. So that comes back to posture and all that. That's all the hitters are doing is, if they do a bunch of stuff back here, all that doesn't matter. It's
they're all
when they
coming
get
to
to
the
their
same
low.
point. Mm-hmm.
Yes, they're all getting to that same point. So that's what they're coaching. And realizing that, you know, something that took me to the next level. Because I never realized that before. It's just straight, you know, arm talent. And now it's like, now I know posture, and then my arm talent can work behind that. And now I can throw harder than I ever have before.
Yeah, and it's like you said, it's utilizing every, you know, piece of information you have at the moment. It's going to hitters, seeing what they want to hit. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yes.
It's going to pitching coaches and seeing, you know, how would you pitch this guy? You know, hitting coaches, stuff like that. It's learning how to pitch smarter and stuff like that. And it's, you know, it's when my junior year is when we first started implementing like a lot of charts and stuff like this. So we look at counts, you know, stuff like that, kind of understanding how players went wrong or where we went right. You know what I mean?
Right.
Kind of just keeping you in the game. We had like 7 charts we had to do. Me being hurt, I was on the sign picking chart. So like I said, we had our own sign picking chart, you know, a couple of games we had it, you know, it was fun.
Yeah.
You know, if coaches are dumb enough not to change their signs, you were definitely going to take advantage of it.
And I'll add on to those charts. Those charts are something that you do in pro ball too. You know, we have spray charts. Rookie ball, you don't do spray charts because the roster changes so much. But once you get up to high A, double A, you'll have spray charts for teams that you're playing because you're playing them, you know, I don't know however many times a year, but quite a few times if they're in your division. So where those spray charts go into play is if, you know, if a guy's hitting it away, and his swing is kind of, you know, down to the ball, kind of what I would say like an X swing, then I'm going to throw plus stuff to it. I'm going to throw a 4-seam up, curveball down. If I see that he's spraying away. But if I see that he's pulling in, then, you know, I'm going to go away. Right?
Yeah.
It's like that's where that spray chart comes into play is like building strategy on how to throw to guys, because you see guys more than one time in baseball. You play teams over and over.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember in St. Paul, I played against my first start as a pro. I gave up a broken bat home run to Jose Sermo, who was a MVP of the league the year before.
Mm-hmm.
And then that was an exhibition game. And then I think it was my first start in the regular season. My first pro win was against the same team, Sioux City Explorers. And I had to face Jose Sermo again. And he hit a fastball out he hit the ball out on a fastball up and in.
Mm-hmm.
So I went changeups down to him. And that's kind of like the learning from at bats to different players.
Yeah.
And that's when in pro ball, Verlander probably knows what he's going to throw Mike Trout every single time.
Yeah.
He knows how he's going to attack Belzer. That's something that they think about prior.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that they practice too. Like when I'm practicing, I'm picturing myself striking somebody out or like executing a pitch in a certain situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You have to look at it as, how do you stay successful in the majors when they have so much information on you? Pitcher and hitter, you know what I mean? They know what you're doing, they probably know what you ate for breakfast that morning.
Yeah, and I really think that comes down to having the arsenal. Because nowadays it's, guys have a little cutter, a slider, changeup, two-seam, four-seam, curveball.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to be like two different types of pitchers. Like what I said, if someone's swinging really down in the ball, I'm going to stay on, the plus plane. Four seams up, curveballs down. If someone's really flat with their barrel, then I'm going to go two seams down and in, changeups down.
Because they're never going to cut, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. So it's kind of trying to become two different types of pitchers. That's why my opponent batting average against lefties last year was better against righties, because my changeup away was just, deadly to lefties, and righties, I wasn't pitching as effectively inside to them. But I was pitching better to lefties because I had that changeup away.
Yeah.
Then once I get that, two-seam into righties, then I'll be able to be two different types of pitchers. And that's kind of what you're building up to, because nowadays, like you said, they know what you're throwing. And they're ready for it, and their approach is, smash the mistake. But if you can change it up from each at bat, then that's where you're going to be really successful. And that's something that's hard to do when you're a kid. You're not going to throw six pitches.
No, especially in
learning fastball, change up, and mixing them up is something that's going to go a long ways. And when you get older, then you can learn, the cutters and all that stuff.
Absolutely. Especially as you get older, the margin of failure becomes smaller and smaller and smaller. And it's sometimes you have to find ways to reinvent yourselves, especially if a guy long in 20 years, 16 years in the bigs, you're not going to have the same stuff that you did within the first.
Look at Cologne.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm sure he didn't. I don't know if Cologne did, but I don't know if he's looking at any Rapsodo numbers or anything like that.
No, he's throwing two seams on the corner.
You know what I mean?
He did throw 100. Now he's 88 on the corner. That's how it's evolved. And I actually played against Carlos Zambrano, and he did the same thing.
Same thing.
So Carlos Zambrano was playing independent ball. I played against him, and he was just 87, 88, two seams on the corners. And I remember watching him on TV, 96, blowing guys up. And he's still just as effective 87, 88 on the corner as he was 95 blowing guys up. That's that two different types of pitchers.
Absolutely. It was, when I was pitching my junior year, I had pain in my shoulder. I knew something was wrong. And I was like just willing my arm. I was throwing low 80s with the two seam and a changeup, nasty changeup. Right. That was my out pitch.
And you're probably still effective when you were hurt.
Absolutely. So I was, later in the year, I was starting games, and I was like 5-6 innings, just give my team a chance to win,
Exactly, yeah. Get ground balls, play the game.
That was my game plan.
Strike everybody out. Yeah.
And it's crazy how effective you can be, when 80 looks a lot different up and in two seam than it does,
Perceived velocity, yeah. Learning the perceived velocity and realizing that, I throw BP to kids every day and they get themselves out all the time.
Hitting is hard.
3 out of 10.
I've had so many hitters come to me like, yo, hitting is so hard. And it's like pitchers don't understand that. They try to be so perfect. You know what I mean?
And that's what my buddy tells me that catches me. He said, your stuff is so gross. Like, stop trying to be so pretty with it. Like, stop trying to put it perfectly on the corner. Just throw it over the plate and let it move. And not, especially my catcher from last season in independent ball, he was under Yadier Molina, Jeremy Martinez. He was in AAA with the Cardinals, and he really took me under his wing. And he was like, every pitch you go like this at the beginning, you'd be like, stay here, like throw it through my body, whatever pitch it was. Even when I was in the game, he'd be doing this, like stay here, because I just started as a pro. I just had this electric stuff, and I had no control with it. And then once I learned how to stay over the plate, I was super effective. I had the second best ERA after 5 starts in that independent ball league, because I just threw the ball over the plate and my defense was great. And I had enough bite to miss barrels and get that weak contact. I wasn't trying to strike everybody out, because I knew that if I walk guys, it's going to be hard to get out there again. And if you try to strike everybody out, that's kind of the formula for walking guys too.
Mm-hmm.
because you're getting deep in counts. You're trying to make your pitch instead of, trying to get the guy out in 3 pitches or less, or, just letting him make weak contact.
And,
being okay with that.
It's not just throwing, it's pitching. And I can't tell you how many like kids I've seen just try and throw the shit out of the ball. They're like, scouts want to see me throw hard. I'm going to throw hard as I can, but they never pitch in a game because they can't throw because they can't throw a strike. You know what I mean? And it's different if you're in the big, you're in the minors already. You come up as a position player and you throw really hard. They're like, well, maybe we can use him as a pitcher. You know what I mean? That's completely different than you just trying to throw as hard as you can just to get that, opportunity to, kind of move forward. So it's
and velocity is huge nowadays. Obviously, like I said, all my teammates were throwing 90 plus, but it's the guys that, the hitters are timing up that velocity too. So, the hitters are out also training that way. They're cranking the machines up. They're hitting against tires, making that solid contact to be ready for that velocity. So the hitters are training, what the pitchers are. So what I'll compare that to is before, when we were growing up, it was more fastballs low.
Yeah.
Right. And every hitter was training low ball hitting. And now I've been being taught fastballs up and in. Yeah. Now hitters are trying to learn this flat barrel, this turn up here, this Bregman's type of swing. So that's like kind of how like the pitchers feed off of what the hitters are doing. And it's kind of vice versa. So you always look at how hitters are training and how pitchers are training for whatever position you are. Because if you know what the other person's trying to do, then you just do the opposite, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of the strategy of baseball.
It's interesting you say that, because I remember, being a kid hitting off a tee. Okay, I would put the ball just like that. And my dad would tell me, aim for the top one, stay on top of the ball. And, now I feel like it's completely different. Kids are aiming for that, trying to get that launch angle. And, pitching back then, you're like, okay, you're aiming for the top of the ball. You're trying to hit down. I'm just going to pitch, underneath the bat.
Exactly.
Now all the swings, are looking up. That's where you see everything starting to get elevated now. So. And
I think that's where, the strike zone needs to expand a little bit up. There's not enough strikes called up in the zone. But I will say World Series, you see how many fastballs were up in the zone. I mean, pretty much, I'd say probably 75% of fastballs thrown in the World Series were high fastballs.
Yeah.
And that's where the game's going to nowadays, right now. I guarantee it'll go back to low ball pitching, probably in 5 to 10 years. But it's just going to go back and forth because it's a constant battle between pitcher and the hitter.
Everyone's trying to get that advantage, you know what I mean?
Yes,
and then once you have that advantage, they have to adapt. And then once they adapt, you have to try something new.
And then I switch mine back.
You know what I mean?
That's kind of how it goes.
It's that.
I have a rock and I'm facing a guy with a stick. It's old school. It's going against their weaknesses. And if I go against their weaknesses, then I make their strengths even weaker. So they're feeling weak on that side, and then I go into their strength, and they're like, oh, they weren't ready for that because they're thinking about their weaknesses.
Yeah, whoever's got that advantage, it's a big mental game, too. It's, it is. I talked with Todd Jones, and he was like, I faced Frank.
I love that interview.
Yeah,
I watched that like 3 times.
He was the nicest guy ever, to talk to.
He was amazing.
But he's told me, he's like, when I'd face guys like Frank Thomas, it's like these are big name guys, big dudes. Yeah. He's like, you meet them later, and it's like, wow, this guy isn't as, like tough or exterior, but that's just something that they built up to where it gives them that edge, that advantage over, other pitchers, So there's little things like that are part of the game that just like people don't see.
And I feel like that's what has helped me so much is like that first junior year on varsity. Like I knew I was preparing for that one opportunity. No, I wasn't like entitled by any means. Right. And then college, you get that one opportunity. Independent ball, you get that one opportunity. Pro ball, you get that one opportunity. So my whole career has been, one opportunity. So that's kind of how I train, is like being ready for that. And then you see these guys and you're like, you get the confidence, you play against guys over and over and over. And then you're like, wow, this guy isn't that big. I was in spring training walking next to Hader and Ryan Braun every day. And then every day they just kept looking a little more normal to me. At first, like, that's Josh Hader.
Yeah, you see him on TV, they look like God.
And a reliever, and I'm bigger than him in person. And then it's like, every day, they look more normal to you. And then once you accept that they're just like you, then it's
just
time
another
to play.
day, yeah. And, you just –
and that's that confidence, kids throwing changeups, just like – it starts with your first thought in your head. When you call changeup, if you think, oh, shoot, I got to throw a changeup here,
you're going to fail.
You have no shot.
100%.
But if you think, oh, yes, I got a changeup here, then you have a much better shot. Mechanics aside.
Conviction
great mindset before the pitch.
Our pitching coach would always say, if you're going to throw a fucking pitch, you better have conviction, man. And if you don't believe in the pitch, it's not, not going to work. And it's have you read the ABCs of pitching?
No.
No, it's a
Oh,
really good book. I think you should definitely, dive into it. But they talk about the red light, yellow light, green light. He says
okay.
you're pitching in the green light, everything's good. Then,
Right.
guy makes an error, guy gets a hit, you start going into that yellow light,
Mhm.
first and second, bases loaded. Now you're in the red light. You're like, oh shit, I have to step off and kind of reassess myself, kind of get
Mhm.
back into that green. That's,
Right.
part of the mental game is, something that doesn't get talked about a lot too.
Yeah, and that's when guys get on base. That's when you're tested most as a pitcher,
Mm-hmm.
especially no out. Say you give up a leadoff single, like, man, I got nobody out and a guy on first.
Mm-hmm.
Another single comes, first and second, nobody out. It's either get in or get out. It's kind of like a fight.
Yeah.
If you get hit, you're gonna back up or you're gonna come back in.
Mm-hmm.
So once those two guys get on base, it's more like I'm flipping that switch to green right away because now I got to go. Like, I'm throwing my changeups down the zone. I'm getting my weak contact. I'm getting my outs. I'm not trying to strike everybody out there. Got him first and second, nobody out. I'm getting ground ball first, and then I might go first strikeout later.
Mm-hmm.
But just being smart and like knowing and having confidence in my pitches in that situation to be like, okay, he's not getting a third base.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're staying there. Like,
Yeah,
I'll say that in my head.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'll look at the runners and I'll say in my head, like,
you ain't going anywhere.
You're right. So that's like supreme confidence that you have to have on the mound.
Mm-hmm. And it's
especially when runners get on.
It's funny you say that, because I don't know if Ricky D ever mentioned our pitching coach, Greg Modica.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure he has. It has to come up. But when we would throw bullpens, everything would be from the stretch. And, like, his reasoning was, you're going to make your most important pitches from the stretch.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
I would agree with that. That's a great point.
So,
I'm going to use that today. I'll work after this.
Absolutely. Yeah, no. So it's like you're going to make your most important pitches when you're in the stretch. So why not competitively, compete and, like, practice for that? So, like, I would always
learn mechanics out of the stretch because my velocity would drop a lot out of the stretch. My windup, I'd throw 2 to 3 miles an hour harder. But then once I learned how to transfer energy out of the stretch too, and that's the other thing is, like, getting power from the stretch.
Yeah, it's funny. You would look at it and be like, hey, like, why am I throwing much harder from the windup than I am from the stretch? And, like, you're kind of like, oh, okay, when you're younger, you're like, okay, maybe it's just something. But now, like, we can actually, like, get the feedback and be like, okay, this is the reason why,
And learn how to have your stretch be just like your windup.
You know what I mean? So it's, it's just little things like that, like, I wish I had or we had, just younger, because it would have been exponentially helpful, to us.
I tell these kids every day, I say, you're so lucky to have this big facility. We have 2 hit tracks here. We're going to get a Rapsodo. It's like, I had none of this when I was a kid. It was, basketball season, baseball season, football season. You're just outside playing.
Absolutely.
Like, there's no technology, or, like, it wasn't being taken as seriously as it is now.
Mm-hmm. And, it's nice you mentioned the Get Ready training facility, because I wanted to go into that, and, like, I was looking at the videos and the pictures of it, and it's, like, so amazing, especially to have a place like that in Iowa, just because the weather is
a little hidden gem. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just because the weather is, because I played in Maine. So, like, I know that
you understand.
I know the weather can be so shitty, but, like, we had such nice facilities to where it allowed us to, like, still get our practice in and stuff like that. Yeah. No, look, it's awesome.
So this is huge facility. Hit tracks over there. And then we have an underground cage here. Another hit tracks in there. Turn the spotlights on. And then there's upstairs. We got 2 tunnels up there with another TV. We can move the hit tracks up there. Mm-hmm. And, we pull back that divider and do some long toss. We get stuff done here.
Yeah,
we got a little trampoline. I found this on the curb. Trampoline there. Plyo wall. So, this is paradise.
No, it's
I tell kids that every day. I say, you're in paradise, and they just don't understand.
It's interesting when you talk to, like, someone from the South or, like, California, they don't really understand just because they got that nice weather all the time.
Yeah.
But you talk to someone from the North, from the Midwest, because I played summer ball in Quincy, Illinois. So, like, so I know I played in the Prospect League, and it's,
Gotcha.
there's certain things that, like, it's important to have these facilities, especially in these places where athletes can go. You know what I mean?
Because I haven't skipped a beat ever since coronavirus. Having this facility, like, I work here, so I have the key, right? And I haven't skipped a beat just from having this place. Like, I'm ready to go tomorrow if I get a call back.
Yeah.
For the season and all that, just from having a place like this to go to. But back then we didn't have have that at all.
No, not at all. It was, it's funny because, like, when during winter breaks when I was in college, Greg, he would, like, rent out the cage for us, and he would, we'd have high school guys, college, and pro guys all coming together during, it's snowing, just trying to get better, exchanging information.
It's like that indoor vibe. It's almost like I remember JUCO. I went to DMAC in Des Moines, Iowa. and we had a little barn, literally a pig barn when we weren't using it.
And you maybe have 4 or 5 guys, and they show up every time, and it becomes this little group.
And the ceiling was like 8 feet tall, and it was a 90-foot tunnel, and you had to pull everything down, but it was like that grinding indoor vibe. It's hard to explain, but I'm sure you understand what I'm talking about.
It's walking outside with, North Face, sweatpants coming in and
taking off your boots, getting the snow off, and then pick up a baseball. It's like,
that's why, I wanted to highlight that, because it's important to have places like this where people can go, like you said, you're getting the Rapsodo, shit's expensive.
Right.
You know what I mean? Not the average kid can come in and I think it's best, the younger you are, to come in and just not even use it, but learn from it,
Yes.
Watch other people, you know what I mean? And it's, the fact that you're there every day trying to help out is, big. We had Greg, it's something that if your dad never played professional, they can only help you to a certain point.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
I agree with that.
Going on to the college level and, further, the only guys that are going to help you who have, the guys that have been there and actually been through the shit, you know what I mean? So
that's why, guys come in here and the dad's you're throwing out a lot of information. And you'd be surprised on how much information these kids can handle. Because when the dad isn't there and it's just me and the kid, he's on fire, he's understanding what I'm saying. And then when the dad is there, the dad's hearing me say all this stuff to the kid. The kid looks good, but they're thinking that their kid isn't comprehending it. But we have to keep in mind they're sponges. There is no such thing as really overcoaching. You might be able to overcoach, but there's no such thing as too much information. And that's something that I've been trying to give to kids. 12 years old, I'm giving them information that I think about.
Yeah.
When they're 16 years old, they're I've been thinking about it since I was 12.
Yeah.
They go a long ways.
Yeah,
and that's where they get their money's worth.
And it's, I was lucky enough. My dad was the president of the Little League when I was younger.
Okay.
So I was literally there every day, taking hacks, getting ground balls, doing everything I could, but once you get to high school, it comes to a certain point to where there's certain things that you need or you need help with that they just can't, that's what we went to Greg for. And, I started working out with Greg and we started, I learned about shoulder care routine. I learned about the proper way to lifting, you know what I mean? Yeah. He was kind of my source, you're there for their source as kind of their growing guide to say, all right, make a goal. He was, he would tell us, what schools you want to go to early on. Okay, you got those 3 named schools. You better work your fucking ass off if you want to make it to those schools. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So it's setting that up very early to understand, and now that we have all this information, it becomes even easier for them to, adjust to it.
And you have to keep in mind these parents are paying, good chunk of money per month for their kid to come to you. Would you want your kid to just go to a coach that says, do this drill, or do this drill and explain to the kid why and, how we're doing it? Where does it apply to pitching?
Because there's only so much you can do in that 45, 30-minute, little interaction between them. It's taking that home and letting them.
Exactly. Something to take home.
Yeah, something to take home and get used to it and, learn, continue learning it, that it just doesn't end at the baseball field.
Right, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's the first thing I think about when I wake up and last thing I think about before I go to sleep. It's mechanics and pitching. And
if you don't have that mindset, you're not going to be successful. You know what I mean? Right. It's, some guys are going to be God-given talent, but, it takes, that's how you separate it from all.
They end up getting to that point where, talent only goes so far and then they can really get into it. And I feel like that's kind of what happened to me.
Absolutely. So
this is good stuff.
Yeah, no.
I could go for days, man.
I know. Listen, I have 3 different pages of everything I just wrote down. You know what I mean? It's
That's awesome.
Like I said, I watched the Cutter Nation video and I'm like, me and you are very much alike. Trying to get information and stuff like that. Even the way we pitched, 2-seam changeup guys. Kind of developing. Even getting injured and stuff like that. Trying to work through that. So I feel for you. It's not an easy thing to do, especially when you see 85 to 97. It's, people see that and how does he do it? It's it's not overnight. It's a long process of understanding the information. Even businesses, it's the same thing businesses they do. They take in information, they try and, implement the change, and then they get feedback. You know what I mean? And then if that works, they keep going. If it doesn't, and that's what, pitchers of, players are starting to become.
It's a great point. I haven't thought about that.
So, I mean, I keep highlighting the holy trinity of, understanding the data, understanding your body, getting that knowledge, and then using that for optimal output and recovery. You know, that's where we are in the sport right now, I think.
Yep. Back in the day, it was a lot different than it is now. And just a comparison that I made earlier to other sports is like, you know, basketball isn't really raising levels that much. You know, football is kind of the same sport, and now baseball is just like shoom, like everybody's throwing 95. Like, how does a sport advance like that quickly?
That quickly, yeah. No, like like you said in football, it's like the 60-yard dash. If people were evolving, it'd just be, you know, quicker and
exactly,
quicker.
yeah. The 40,
you know what I mean? Quicker and quicker and quicker. But
why aren't people running in under 4:40? Right? They're like running 4.2s, and that's like the fastest it's ever gotten.
Yeah.
Usain Bolt, like, you know, you can't really get much faster than that. But then now it's like, oh, now our arms are a lot better because it's an unnatural movement, and now we're training the right muscles to use it, and now we're figuring out how to use it. Because if you think it's a natural movement, then we should have been throwing 95 20 years ago.
Absolutely.
But nobody knew how. So that's what I think, you know, throwing is not a natural movement. It's something that has to be learned through progression, through, you know, over time, and through like good reps, becoming that robot of, you know, being good rep after good rep.
Were you?
That's how I think the game evolved.
So like, once you made it, you know, to the Brewers organization, you know, I know you had your whole routine and everything. Did they kind of give like a backlash of you having your own personalized routine? Did they have like their own? No. Nope.
Nowadays, it's
kind of your own.
Just like what's his name? Jones said about Matt Manning. Right? They saw him doing his weighted balls when they came in. They paid the guy $7 million. Why are they going to mess with him? Now, it is really like that, because I love watching that video, because he was a minor league coach, and it's like I'm talking to my coaches again. You know, being at home, just hearing him talk. I'm like, man, like that's what they're really looking for. It's like that kind of stuff. And just like being aware of what coaches are looking for will take you far as a player too. Because it's not necessarily playing the act. It's more buying into those things, like buying into being locked in the dugout, buying into working on your mechanics, buying into your routine, not acting like you during a routine. It's buying into your own. And that's what it's evolved to, is like guys have their own routines, and it's something that they really stick to. And it's not something that these coaches are really trying to change, because pitching is a lot different for everybody. It's not a natural movement. It's not like, you know, we're working on sprinting. There's like one way to work on it, right? Nobody pitches the same. So it's kind of up to you, and it's a lot more personal now than it was before.
Yeah, it's, you know, I think our whole world is kind of moving towards this like customization to first, you know, to personally fit you. And in a sport where there's so many different body types and, you know, weight classes and stuff like that, you know, it's important to build a program for you.
Right.
You know what I mean? One of the things I hated after coming back from my shoulder surgery, they gave me, you know, the throwing routine, and it's like, and they're like, I'm like, what is this? They're like, oh, it's the general throwing routine. I'm like, okay, like the general throwing routine for like what? Like what specific injury? You know what I mean? And it's like, you know, it's part of that like, because I know Driveline has their own, you know, program for coming back off of surgery and stuff like that, and it's this general throwing program that I just kind of hated. You know what I mean? It's like, how is that going to work for me when, you know, I've had 2 labrum surgeries, I'm still doing the generic throwing program.
And you're just following a program instead of the program following you, like
for
I said in the Cutter Nation. Because that's the thing for my rehab, was I made the program follow me. I wasn't necessarily looking at, I have to throw 60 throws at 60 feet. It was more, okay, I'm going to get to 60 feet. I'm going to try to get to 60 throws. And if I feel good and I get there, great. If not, then I'll, you know, I might cut off early, or I might come in a little bit. It's not like, oh, I have to do this program. It's more, this program is going to follow me, and then I'll be ready when I'm ready. That's how I came back from my surgery, was, you know, really taking my time. I took 14 months off. And then after surgery, I gained 5 miles an hour from that, just from building that routine, you know, loading my scaps, all that stuff. And I didn't know mechanics back then either. After surgery. All I did was try to clean up my arm out of my glove, but I wasn't aware of my legs yet. So I was cleaning this up here.
First,
I was super jabby before surgery. I would jab and then throw. So I just cleaned that up, and it kept me healthy for a while. And then my senior year of college, I had some bicep tendonitis from my shoulder. I was like, what is this from? And I was like, well, it's probably because I'm too heavy up top. Right? I'm just trying to do it all up here, and all the tension's going in the front of my shoulder. And then I came to coach a game ready, and I learned how to use my legs, and now it's like I'm clean all through here, and it's just it's coming from the ground up. So that was the biggest thing for me.
Absolutely. You know, it's not trying to become the perfect pitcher right away. It's perfecting little movements in increments. You know what I mean?
Over time, yeah.
Like you said, it's perfecting this. Okay, now I have this down packed to where, you know, it's second nature to me.
And that's where the information overloads and the dads get freaked out.
You know what I mean?
Pitching there's so much going on, and there's so much to talk about.
Different aspects.
Like, okay, you perfect your glove. Now you got to perfect your landing. Okay, now perfect your ride. Perfect your torsion. It's like
and put
so much information.
And put everything together. It's not easy. It takes a while over time and stuff like that. And when you see MLB guys come back from injuries, you have to understand that they have the resources. You know what I mean? They have money invested into them that their organization has that have their custom programs built around them.
Right.
You know what I mean? As a college player, you're sometimes you're left on your own, especially.
Oh, I was getting physical therapy 15 minutes away. I wasn't even getting physical therapy from the school. I was completely on my own.
You know what I mean? And
that was tough.
People don't understand, you and me, we understand because we've done it, but it's like, you're kind of all on your own, especially when you go back home. It's like, all right, you got to do what you have to do, or you're not, Yeah.
It's really up to you. Yeah. Baseball is something that you have to do over and over and build those habits, because it's something that can slip really easily. You take a month or two off, you try to get back in it, you're not going to be hitting it so hard.
No, you're 2 months behind, man.
Yeah, exactly. You get behind.
So I hope people, kids have utilized this little time as much as they could, to try and get as, if they're lucky enough to have
stuff like this, looking online, researching. I had a Zoom meeting with my high school last week, and I was just telling the kids, like, you have all this time to really dedicate yourself. Don't look at this as like a pandemic, shut down. I can't do anything. This is a time for you to excel against your competitors. Right now I would be researching pitching, working on mechanics, just really diving into it. You have all the time in the world to do it.
Absolutely.
There's really no excuse right now. Yeah.
Hear from the guys, that have been there, that have, played in different areas, have been through this shit, it's stuff listening to that, that can help, they know, you know what I mean? Why wouldn't you want to go straight to the source of, the guys that know, what's actually happening?
And all you have to do is just type it in Google.
Type it in. Google is your best friend. To anyone listening out there, Google is your best friend.
Yes.
Whatever you need to do, man. All right, I don't want to take too much of your time. I think we were like 40, 50 minutes of this stuff. So
I got a lesson coming in soon.
Absolutely. I want to get it all uploaded, and once I got that, I'll send it to you. I want, thank you for coming on, taking, the time out. It's
awesome. Nice to meet you, dude. Let's do this again soon.
Yeah, absolutely. I wish I could, visit and stuff like that. Talk baseball, because I could do it forever. But I do give a lesson, so I'm
gonna get out to New York. Are you in New York right now? Where are you at?
We actually moved out to Florida, thankfully.
Oh, okay.
So we're not.
Let you know if I'm in Florida.
Absolutely, man. Beautiful weather.
I'm gonna visit Ricky D in New York City. You're soon, Ricky D from the Queens.
That's so funny, man. I thank Ricky for putting this together, man. I like